How do you measure success within an institutional blockchain deployment? Is it just how much capital is being moved on a daily basis? Are there other KPIs that you look at that signal to you success or growth that is healthy?
I'll give you an example. Something that a lot of times people will look at is how many assets have been issued on chain. And although I think it's an important metric, I don't think it's the most important metric. At the end of the day, the whole value of blockchain is to create better utility. It's to reduce the OpEx and the cost of issuing and managing assets, all the way through to then moving them and using them in terms of different financial functions. And therefore, I mean, you could see that there's just so many native issuances that have taken place, but then since that happened, there's zero utility associated with that asset. And therefore, I think that the best metric on success is going to come in the form of how much dollar utility people are willing to spend on your chain. That, to me, is the most important metric. Not how many users, not how many wallets, not how many assets have been issued, how much dollar utility have been burned on your chain.
Yeah, you mentioned a very impressive list of folks, and not an exhaustive one at that, that you all currently collaborate with. In some ways, these are, you're building somewhat of a consortium, as I think about it, of, and constellation of customers. They're very diverse in terms of what they do. How do you keep, such a diverse group sort of aligned on where digital asset is going and sort of push everybody forward in what I would call maybe a consistent and direct way, if that makes sense? And then how do you communicate a direction of travel to take the space? Because I very much view what you all are doing as you're really trying to lead the institutional vector down the path of the highest likelihood of adoption of this technology. And you're talking to folks that might be on the trading side, folks that are on the asset management side. There are folks that are in the financial services, like core infrastructure space, like DTCC, that all have different bones to pick in sort of the traditional financial markets. And so I'm just curious how you chart the path forward so that you can drive the highest dollar value outcome in terms of utility for the space in the shortest amount of time.
I think that our success to date, and hopefully going forward, beyond just the proof of the network and what is happening, is that, again, you come to an institutional player and you're using the language that they use. You understand what are the things that they're worried about. You can explain why you design certain things the way that you've done. And it comes from a place that understands their business, their concerns, and the things that they have to manage. I'm not saying that it wins a contract for you. I don't think that it necessarily gets you through the finish line, but it allows you to have a real constructive conversation that is anchored in reality. You can also say, we're just going to do everything from the ground up because we know better than everyone. In many cases, it works. By the way, I'm not necessarily challenging. It's just not our approach of how to do it. And I think that has worked for us, at least successfully, understanding the subject matter expertise there, but also being able to kind of understand where are the challenges of the clients.
And do you have any sort of well-worn thoughts today about potential future interoperability between Canton and other institutional networks? Or have you sort of thought about this as something for a future conversation, or is that something you're thinking about actively today?
Generally speaking, what I'll say is that interoperability, first of all, is yet another one of those words that take a lot of shapes. What do we mean by interoperability? Is interoperability saying that I want to take an asset that was created on Canton and I send it to Ethereum, it's no longer on Canton and now suddenly it's on Ethereum? Is it when I do interoperability, is I can lock it on Canton and now I can create it on Ethereum? Like, what does that mean? Is it a message-based interoperability? Is it at the protocol level interoperability? Again, so many different flavors to just a single word, one of those loaded words that get used in this space. What I will say is that I cannot talk on behalf of Canton because everything that is happening in Canton now is decided by the community. But my personal view and a digital asset is we would love to collaborate with anyone, including our competitors, as long as we see that there's business value to our customers. So let me give you an example. Let's say that Canton was driving all of the largest clearinghouses in the world. Let's just imagine a world that this is what we've ended up being able to do. And now these clearinghouses said, you know what? We're willing to accept Ethereum as eligible collateral for our networks. We go, great, let's interoperate with Ethereum that we can mobilize those type of examples, because now there's clearly value for our customers to do that. And, I think that that's just the approach that we've taken. So honestly, one of the things that I'm excited about the most, for example, there's already now interoperability between Canton and Bitcoin, for example, where you could actually have bridged Bitcoin on Canton, and now you could trade Bitcoin on Canton with privacy, which is a really cool thing. Like today, every time you trade Bitcoin, everybody gets to see it. You could pledge Bitcoin as collateral for options exchanges with privacy without anyone seeing. If crypto exchanges are willing to accept wrap Bitcoin on Canton, you could even send your Bitcoins to exchanges. Our view is, always think about interoperability, collaboration, or partnerships, as long as it makes commercial sense to your audience or customers.
And I'm curious, you've had exposure to a lot of different asset classes throughout your career. When you think about the asset classes that maybe make the most sense to move on to blockchains sooner, how do you think about the factors that would weigh in on that sort of framework?
There isn't just a simple answer. The answer is, what are you trying to do? So I'll give you an example. Like a lot of times people will say, well, US equities are a very efficient asset class. It's very cheap to trade, blah, blah. I'd say that's true, but for example, trading US equities 24/7 is not simple, or you can't pledge equities as collateral against loans or things like that. So there's many aspects of US equities today that as a result of the rails that they exist, even though specific rail is efficient, it prevents you from all kinds of possibilities that today are not available for you. So for example, most of us that hold equities really see none of the benefit of lending those equities to others. We don't. But if you could actually hold a US equity natively in your wallet, and then there's going to be things like Aave, for example, for equities, boom, now suddenly I can actually give my equity and I will get some return based on what market conditions say I should get for lending my equity. And I think that that is one aspect on an asset class that has a significant amount of efficiency already, when you think about it in the context of what is available for that asset today, which is for the most part trading. But there's a lot of elements that are currently not available for it from a connectivity perspective. I think that that adds tremendous value. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of people excited about tokenized equities. Then there's a whole segment of asset classes that have massive inefficiency and are huge in size. So that's like the whole private markets. Massive amounts of reconciliation, a lot of inefficiency, a lot of friction. That being said, there's still really large asset classes. So there you have an opportunity not only to bring connectivity into these products, but also like to make them significantly more affordable for people to hold and have many dimensions. And I will tell you, we work in both of these spectrums. I will say the other element in many cases is, who do you need in order to make tokenization a reality? And that should be another element of like, is it going to require regulatory changes? Like, are these institutions, like, for example, a lot of times people talk about real estate. I think that it would be amazing if title houses existed natively on chain, because then you would really be able to do cool things with real estate.